Welcome to episode 36 of Super States, Practices of Transformation with me, your host, Joshua Peters. Super States explores the connection between trance states and personal or professional development. And in every episode, we talk to world-class experts, industry leaders, revolutionary thinkers who all share the latest information, the different tools that they have, and their own personal stories that are there to inspire us on our journeys. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast through your favorite podcast host, or you can subscribe on YouTube so you can stay up to date with new episodes. If you enjoy this show, if it gives you any value at all, please give me a 5-star review. That's the best way to help the show grow. This week, I speak with Strider John Peterson. Strider John is a coach who focuses on relationships and helping people achieve more authentic and fulfilling connections. He is on a mission to help men uncover their sacred masculine. So here we go, exploring the sacred masculine and feminine with Strider John Peterson. Welcome to Super States. I am here with Strider John Peterson. Strider, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joshua. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk to you today.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm excited to hear from you today. Strider, describe to us what you do and how that makes an impact on people's lives.
So I define myself as a relationship coach and a erotic authenticity artist and guide. So what does that mean? Well, I primarily work in the space of men's work and working with them to better understand the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine as it works within them, within their own bodies, and also how it works interpersonally. Ultimately, my goal is I want people to get along better. I think that there's a crisis of erotic rapport between men and women in this day and age. Women think, or they tell me that men are out of touch with their emotions or unexpressive, and men think that women are unpredictable and all over the place emotionally. So we're talking past each other. And I believe that the answer to that comes from a better understanding of the higher level energetic activity of the masculine feminine as it works within us, not just as defined by biology, but kind of in a higher spiritual plane. And I want to make very clear that this work is not in opposition to the women's movement. This is a supportive type of work, and so I think that's real important for your listeners to know.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be working in that realm if that were the case.
Great. There's a lot to unpack there. But first, before I start to kind of go into what you just described, because I'm really curious about a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us how you got here. Like what is the transformation that you've gone through that brought you to this place?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm a child of the 60s and 70s. I'm, as we're speaking to you, I'm 62 years old, and I was raised at a pretty nice upbringing. The women's movement was coming out of the shadows when I was coming of age, and it was embraced by my mom and my sisters. And my dad, maybe to a lesser degree, he wasn't. I mean, he was supportive, but he really didn't quite know because he wasn't really a great communicator on that level. So I was given messages that that masculine energy was something to be feared. There wasn't really a role, and it was kind of an either or. Either there was the kind of the traditional, the Leave It to Beaver household role of the male as the one and only breadwinner and the head of the family, and that was being challenged by the women's movement. So What we did not have at that time was a really good understanding of how men can be supportive of that role. So you ended up with two types uh, of tracks, basically how men were raised, and I was raised in the soft male track. I was given lessons that my role was to diminish my masculinity and to allow women to step into roles that had been denied them. And the alternative could have been a confrontational role against the women's movement. And I did not choose that, fortunately. I think that's a dead end road. So, uh, so that was kind of the basis of where I came from when I entered into adulthood. And that won me a lot of female friends. It didn't win me a lot of romantic partners, and I was kind of confused by that. I think many men who go that route are baffled that all their women friends uh, are not interested in being romantic with them. So, well, I eventually found my mate, and I was married for 27 years, and raised two kids, and the relationship ended in a very painful and expensive divorce. And my as I look back over the aftermath of that failed relationship, although I don't want to call it a failed relationship. It was we accomplished a lot of good things, and we had a lot of fun together, and we had some wonderful times, and we learned a lot to get together. So as I look back, I think that the lack of a true understanding of my role as a masculine, as a male in my family, uh, really affected my wife. It affected my relationship with myself as well, and it uh, I, I I wasn't really I was never really confident in my role uh, because I didn't really understand that higher level of masculinity, as I believe. I think there's not a very good understanding of the sacred feminine that was working in my wife as well. So the my split was about 7 years ago, and it was accompanied by relocation out to California. And I had been most of my adult life, I've been on a path of personal growth and personal exploration, and it wound me through different routes. I mean, my undergraduate degree was in agriculture and botany. Uh, but I pivoted away from that and went into photography because I was interested in the arts and the chemistry and the impact that uh, that editorial photography can have on the world. All these things were spinning in my head. I eventually settled into a role as a medical photographer. I worked in ophthalmology for 28 years and working in the diagnostic imaging department. And uh, I was doing direct patient care and working in the battle to fight blindness and vision loss, which I think is a very noble battle. It was a very really great profession for me. I never took work home, and I had my weekends off, so that was great. It beats the heck out of freelance photography where there's too much work and not enough money. My Where I am right now is I retired from that position in September, and I'm pulling together all of these different interests into I'm hoping is a cohesive uh, 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 thrust in my coaching work. And I settled into working with men uh, simply because of my own experience. When I talk to men and women, I hear a lot of the same patterns that
Mhm.
were active in my relationship and in me due to a number of factors. I think our society has dropped the ball on initiatory practice and rites of passage. for all young people. But my own experiences as a man uh, is indicative of a real tragic loss. I think we have many of the world's problems are due to that fact that the elders no longer take the young men and teach them how to transition from boyhood into manhood. And there are other problems. I think our society suppresses people's exploration of taboo spaces,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of limitation of self-expression that's happening. It creates a lot of unhappiness. We see that in fundamentalist religious practice and societies that people have a very difficult time breaking out of. And adding this all up together with a poor understanding generally of how male and female energies, yin and yang, work within our bodies and between people is a very rich area to explore. And uh, well, that's where I hope to engage in right livelihood.
Mhm.
I have my dad was a Jungian psychotherapist, so I've known about Carl Jung since I was 8 years old. My dad actually moved our whole family over to Switzerland when he was studying, so that was a big life
Wow.
event for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I spent 3 years in a small Swiss school. They gave me 2 weeks of German class and said, "Here, kid, go learn." And one of my first experiences of being thrown into the deep end, and
Mhm.
uh, topic for another day, I guess. So uh, I have a number of different practices. You could also think of them as, if you draw them out as Venn diagrams, that they overlap in a kind of a confusing pattern. I mean, I practice Aikido, a Japanese martial art, and I'm preparing for my black belt exam, which will probably be in mid-year 2024. I am a drummer. I play hand percussion, and I've been involved in a lot of ritual drumming, rites of passage through my pagan community.
Mhm.
And my men's work is really important to me. I've involved with the Mankind Project. A little plug for them. They have a wonderful podcast, by the way. And also exploring plant medicine and Kundalini yoga. So, and um, I'm also putting together a book project. So that's kind of where I came from
Yeah.
and where I'm at today. Uh, in and I hope as concise a method as possible for your
Thank you. I
for your
appreciate
listeners to understand.
I appreciate that, Strider.
I'm sometimes confused myself. So uh,
Well,
where
I
I'm
think
coming from
that
and where I'm going.
I totally resonate with that. Like one of the things that I notice a lot with coaches is we
Hmm.
tend to start working with who we were a few years ago. And it's a very natural fit because we've been through it and we can help them.
Right. Right. And
I'm
yeah, so I can add to that. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
a few years ago, I felt a calling to hire my own coach just to give me some ideas about my path forward. And it wasn't long into that process when he said, I'm learning as much from you as you're learning from me. And I think you could be good at this. So I pursued certification and kind of went down an all purpose coaching route uh, that, uh, that seemed satisfying, although it didn't seem specific enough. And I needed to do, it was felt important to me to really work, embrace the things that turn me on, that light
Yeah.
me up, that I've just described, and integrate that into my practice. It didn't seem right, for example, that uh, the the initial coaching that I was doing, I was encouraged, don't talk about kink and BDSM with people. You'll turn them off. You'll scare them away,
Mhm.
and that just didn't quite sit with me. I would rather find those people that really want to know about that stuff and use
Yeah.
my personal experience with it to act as a guide. And that's why I use the term erotic authenticity guide, because I feel I'm in a position where I can help people to explore these areas and bring them back safely without doing damage to themselves or their relationships.
Hmm. So, so you kind of listed quite a few interests from Aikido to drumming, neo paganism,
Mm-hmm.
writing, uh, uh, yoga, plant medicines, BDSM. Like, what's the, if this is a Venn diagram, what's in the center of all of that for you?
Oh my gosh. Well, as as a practice goes, for example, I don't see myself as coaching people in BDSM practice. I think that's kind of a, maybe it's a hobby Venn diagram that's close, because especially when we talk about super states, trance states,
Hmm.
there are definitely
Yeah.
overlapping energies there that are fascinating, and they have been fascinating for me to explore. Um, I I'm not in a position to be teaching Aikido yet, although that's a dream of mine. I love working with beginning students, because I think that art form substantially and radically alters your approach to how you move in space. And
Hmm.
that's been a real gift to me. I think that, and I don't see myself as a direct teacher of yoga. However, there's breath work and the Kundalini work that could be integrated into my practice. I do see plant medicine as a as occupying the center for that. I'm working on in some integration training, so that I can be the type of person who can guide people in to those experiences and then integrate on the way out, so they can become uh, achieve wholeness within themselves and
Sure.
also within their community as they turn back out. Um, so so in the center, really, I think is my fascination with the the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine.
Hmm.
Archetype work from my experience with, or my awareness of Carl Jung's work for most of my life, which incidentally I was not always open to, because my dad had a tendency to want to bring these things up at the dinner table when we all wanted to talk about, what's on TV and the mundane things of our lives, and he was so into this stuff that he was trying to tell his preteen kids, to record their dreams and things like that, and we just didn't want to hear it. Now my dad has been he passed 5 years ago, and it's really been interesting that how this material has worked through my subconscious. It's kind of welled back up, uh, and I got to tip my hat to Dad. He was very consistent all his life that he uh, that the work that Jung's work was really powerful and really important. And I see, I think Jung is really enjoying a bit of a renaissance now.
Hmm.
Um, some of your listeners may not know that Jung was a student of of Sigmund Freud's,
Hmm.
and they eventually parted company on a variety of issues that's beyond the scope of this conversation. But uh, I love the connection to myth and mythology that Jung talked about. And I think the understanding archetypes is a really uh, is a really helpful tool to just get through life. Um,
Yeah.
so that's one of the classes that I teach is a class on male archetypes that uh, that represent gifts that the sacred masculine offers to the sacred feminine.
Hmm.
So um, so I think it all kind of crystallizes and embodies itself in in the work with the relationship work. And
Yeah.
I borrow from here and I borrow from there, and I'm informed by this, I'm informed by that. Um, so that's yeah, and the Venn diagram uh, model works for me because I see that as also shifting,
Yeah.
because you can move those circles around, right?
For sure.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if so say somebody was working with you in your context as a erotic authenticity guide, what would that journey look like for them?
The journey would begin in in the realm of the all-purpose coaching that I described before. I, I I think I work uh, very much in the area of encouraging people to adopt a meditation practice. I think if people journal regularly, that's a tremendous boon to them. I also would work really uh, put a lot of energy into the work of people's self-talk.
Hmm.
What kind of stories do they tell themselves? What kind of conversations go on in their heads? Now, and I speak from personal experience that uh, I thought when I entered into my coaching as a as a client, I had always perceived myself as a very positive person. However, once we dug into that work, I realized how much negativity I had kind of on loop, on a looping uh, reel. And it shocked me because it blew apart an assumption about myself, a central assumption, and B, it put in front of me in bold letters that I had been unconsciously working against myself.
Yeah.
So when people work with me, I talk about meditate, journal, talk about get your thoughts, your mindset right. And that can do with affirmations, also afformations, which I really like too, which are a way of it's kind of, instead of saying an affirmation might be that I have a great relationship with money and money flows beautifully. An afformation would be something akin to, why am I so why does money come to me so easily? Right? It's taking it a step beyond that. Uh, and so that's at the core. And the other thing is I work with, I want people to really look at nutrition and diet,
Hmm.
and look at their sleep, look at their hydration. Uh, so in other words, you got to do the base work first, right? I mean, get a practice in place, journaling, meditation, get your mindset right, eat right, sleep right, hydrate right, exercise right. Now we can start to dig into the deep stuff, and
Hmm.
that's fairly personal. Uh, I uh, in my discovery process with my clients, I go through. I ask them, what do you do? What turns you on? What areas are you active in? And at some point, a question something like this will be asked by me, which is, what are you afraid to talk to me about?
Sure.
Uh, what do you not want me to know about you?
Mm.
And that that could be a 2x4 over the forehead for some people. Uh, and people will answer that question eventually, because we've hopefully by this time built up a level of trust where they can feel free to uh, express a particular taboo area that they've been curious about. It could be, I saw Michael Pollan's documentary on how to change your mind, and now I really want to try mushrooms, but I don't know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
And if I told my parents about it, or if I told my wife about it, or I told my kids about it, I fear the repercussions.
Mm-hmm.
And those are real. Those are real repercussions. Or maybe somebody saying, I'm curious about ethical non-monogamy and polyamory. How do I share this with my partner? That was a big hiccup, major hiccup for me in my relationship. So, and just another example, for the, many people grow up in communities that that are based on a very strong religious belief, and they may feel stifled by that, and they want out, or they want to at least be able to
Mm-hmm.
look beyond the veil, okay, or just look what's on the other side of that door. So those are the conversations that take place, and from then on, it becomes a custom practice. It becomes a customized relationship between coach and client. That my and I trust that that can be very fruitful. Um, but it starts with the all-purpose work.
So what I'm hearing is you've got to have your foundation set first, kind of in all these different areas of your life, before you really jump into this deeper work of what are those kind of scary things that you're not talking about.
Yeah, the scary, juicy spaces, and you can also say that it starts before that, because I also screen for depression and anxiety. Uh, Coaching is at its most effective with people who are in fairly good working order,
Sure.
right? Um, we the overlap between coaching and therapy it's a gray zone,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm I try to be very careful not to intrude into an area in which I'm not trained and not qualified to work,
Yeah.
and that is in the area of the licensed psychotherapy. Uh, I think it's a handy shorthand to consider therapy work primarily past directed. What brought you here? What challenge did you have? And let's get you feeling good today.
Yeah.
Coaching, in my understanding, is about let's see where you're at today and where you want to be. Where do you want to get to? And let's plot out that road. Let's make a plan for how you're going to get there to achieve your ultimate happiness. And the clients that I'm hoping to attract are ones that see that feel themselves being held back by powers of self-falsification,
Yeah.
taboos that are sitting on them very heavily that they can't explore, or misunderstandings about their role. Uh, Young fathers, for example, who suddenly feel that what is my role here? What is my beyond being, just helping out wherever I can? There's got to be something bigger to this, because there's this when children arrive, uh, it's this fantastically opening and spiritually rich experience for mother and child, and it can be the same for men, but it doesn't come through their biology as much. It doesn't come, and it traditionally has come through societies who have supported that, and I think that's lacking
Mm.
in where we are today. So yeah, that's a little off the topic, but the point being that there's a baseline that's important for people, right? The first of all, let's establish that what your problem or the issues you want to work on can be handled by a coach
Sure.
and are not best handled in the domain of psychotherapy. But once we've established that, then we can establish a fresh baseline, which is the all-purpose work, the things that I think would benefit everyone. Everyone would benefit from a meditation practice. I think everyone would benefit from a journaling practice.
Yeah.
Everyone would benefit from better sleep and nutrition and exercise and hydration. Let's all do that.
Mm-hmm.
If we all quit right there, we'd all be better off, right?
Yeah.
But we know we're not, and so just getting people to get, to take sweetened carbonated beverages out of their diet for the rest of their lives. If we can do that, that's a win, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. You're going to live longer and happier. Yeah.
I want to come back to this idea of the crisis of erotic rapport that you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But I also wanted to pair it with something else that you mentioned. So give us an example of how you used an archetype to help a man deal with that crisis.
Ooh, that's a juicy question. I have to pick one because I just finished a workshop that works with 7 of them.
Yeah.
Uh,
You could list the 7 if you'd like, but just
well, I will, and I can't take full credit for them. I'm actually give a tip of the hat to Karen Brody, who wrote a wonderful book called Open Her. You're nodding. You're familiar with it, yeah,
Yep.
and that relates her personal experience as both a woman in the dating scene and as a coach for men. And she lists an artist archetype, a poet, a director, a warrior, a sage, a dark knight, and a lover. And this, for her, it's a trajectory. It goes from simple to complicated.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I read that and I said, "Wow, this is a workshop. This needs to be brought out into the world." And with her blessing, I put together a class that just finished up. We just did the first series last week, and I'm encouraged to continue that. So, and you and I will talk about it at the end, and that'll be in my list of links at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so let's pick one. Let's pick the poet. So the poet's gift is one of expression of his ability to express his love for the object of his desire. And this can, lacking that, a woman can feel as if she doesn't receive as many affirmations of love from her partner. And what the poet does, not only is he, and I'm speaking archetypally here, okay, this is a kind of a characterization of certain behaviors, but we put a label on them it's kind of a shorthand. His gift can be really flowery language, beautiful language. It also, and I think more practically, has to do with a frequency and an intensity of expression. It can be the daily "I love you" spoken from the heart, not just the words. It can be compliments coming out of the blue, right? Not just and specific to her. That's really important. That recognizing something that she has done that you really love. An area of her personal growth, a certain quality that she has, something that lights you up. I mean, honey, whenever I hear you laugh, I just get chills running up my spine because it makes me so happy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, a habit of compliments I've found is another thing. I weave that into my coaching too, because boy, giving people sincere compliments is one of the best examples of a win-win that I know of, because it makes you feel great and it makes the other person feel fantastic. And I uh, try it in the workplace, folks, honestly, and make sure it's real, because there is always something to appreciate about people. So anyway, this poet archetype has this great ability to prove and reprove again and again to his partner why he chose her, why he's with her, and why he celebrates her. Right? Meeting you was the best day of my life, and I'm and finding ways to make that real. And then, and what men often miss is that the nature of yin, the nature of female energy, and how it lives in the body of a woman is of constant change. And this is true neurochemically, because any menstruating woman has an ebb and flow of certain hormones that change her outlook on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. And when and men often don't understand that. Uh, it's a rich lesson for men to be aware of the fact that because you said I love you on a Tuesday to your partner does not cover you until the following Tuesday. It's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's a never-ending process. And if you think that's tedious, well, I've got news for you. What's really tedious is to live in the presence of a woman who does not feel chosen and celebrated, right? And contrast that with the splendor of being in the presence of a woman who feels comfortable and at peace and uh, supported
Yeah.
by you. So yeah. So I think that poet archetype is very close to the surface, actually, in relationships. So uh, yeah, I think that would be that's low hanging fruit to me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it's something that, so two things. This idea of coaching that you kind of mentioned, I think of this as there's two ways to make changes for people: fixing a problem and then getting better at something that you want to
Mm-hmm.
get better at, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what kind of what you're talking about here. You've got a relationship, and why not feed it? Why not amplify by putting in, maybe, like I've heard it described as like deposits, right? Deposits
Mm-hmm.
into the relationship bank account of,
Yeah.
um, but not like a
Or
checkbox kind of
well,
a moment.
or maybe this is a little more uh, accurate, is that it's a living, breathing being,
Hmm.
right? Your relationship it has a life force of its own, and you wouldn't get a dog and feed it once a week. You wouldn't get you wouldn't do that with any other living breathing. You wouldn't get a house plant and water it once a year.
Right.
Uh, they require care and they require attention.
Hmm.
And so thinking of and yes, you're with a living, breathing female partner here, right? And by the way, this also works across the genders too.
Sure.
As a heterosexual male, I come from that perspective. But these energies exist in all people, in non-binary folks, and people in LGBTQ world. It just has different energies that I'm not qualified to speak about, honestly. Uh, so I just want to say that uh, there's gold to be mined in these
Hmm.
topics for everyone, for all people. But I just for purpose of brevity, I distill it down to the traditional male female uh, uh, relationship. So anyway, yeah, feeding that relationship as if it's a living, breathing being, and something that I honestly that I failed to do adequately in my marriage.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we lasted 27 years is a testament that there was true love, there was genuine love uh, and affection, uh, but it gradually sort of withered on the vine.
Sure.
And due in many parts to we could have used way more poet archetype in our relationship. And I put honestly, guys, I put this on you because women have done their work. Not that they're done, right? This is ongoing work, but women have stepped forward and they have laid claim to things that have been denied them. And congratulations to them. Now it's up to the men to step forward uh, and discover the areas where we are uniquely qualified to to share our gifts and share our power for the benefit of everyone.
Yeah, I like the rising together idea.
Exactly. This is
What
not
would
a
you
competition.
no, for sure. What would you say is most misunderstood about men's work?
That it's not pickup culture.
Hmm. Like people think
Uh,
it's pickup culture?
some might. I can't speak for everybody. I can only speak for myself. I often experience when I talk about men's work with women. I think there's a natural apprehension that wells up in the feminine soul, uh, concerns of fears about whenever men get together on their own. What does that mean? What are they planning? What are they doing?
Mm. Yeah.
Uh, so giving reassurances that this is this work is for the greater good is very important. So I hope to be dispelling some of that fear. The Mankind Project that I'm intimately involved with uh, arose in the mid 80s in Milwaukee as a direct response and a thumbs up response to the women's movement. Uh, Three men of varying backgrounds, one of them a feminist psychologist, said to themselves, we need to do that for guys too. We need something that's replacing the lack of initiatory culture. We need to do this. So they um, worked out a number of different programs, and what it's ultimately settled into is the New Warrior Training Adventure, which is the flagship program for Mankind Project, and uh, so uh, it has nothing to do with scoring babes. It's got nothing to do with notches on the bedpost. It has everything to do with understanding the immense power and benevolence that is in the hearts of good men and is also in the hearts of many misguided men that needs to be brought out. So I've been um, overwhelmed by some of the work that I've witnessed, that I've that's happened in my own heart, in my own body, and also that I witnessed other men going through um, in a safe and confidential container. So if that, and fortunately, I don't see a huge amount of mistrust from the women that I tell this about, mostly because they know me and they know where I'm coming from. Uh, Yet there is this little bit of baseline fear that what we're really trying to do is come up with strategies for dominating women. And I can assure you that is totally off the table in this work. You know, these are men who want to do right by their partners. They want to do right by their kids. They want to do right in their jobs and in society.
Yeah.
And the headwinds can be pretty strong. But boy, when men striving for that kind of ideal get together, then real magic can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So say there's somebody that's really curious about this idea of erotic authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any kind of is there anything they need to maybe be aware of or be cautious about as they do this?
Well, I think a lot of the caution is is uh, is put upon them by society. I think it's more likely that people need to be encouraged to explore
Yeah.
and not be afraid.
Hmm.
Uh, I think it if the one of and I have a personal definition for erotic authenticity. And so when you think about, and the word erotic comes from eros, the Greek god of love, which I see as an archetype for life energy. So what if I were to distill erotic authenticity into a longer phrase, it would be more like achieving a degree of honesty with yourself about the energies that work that are active in your life.
Yeah.
That you can't turn off. And Jung talked about that. He talked about suppressing uh, that desires, if pressed upon by whatever force, and put I'm just going to put it on society
Hmm.
for
Sure.
now. Uh, and it's akin to taking a beach ball and trying to hold it underwater.
Hmm.
And the farther underwater you hold it, it's the more violently it pops out.
Hmm.
Eventually, you can't
Sure.
hold it under. And in my dad's practice, he used to talk about people who, as generally as I can say, people who had uh, issues in their lives, problems at work, problems in their relationships, problems with their kids that had nothing to do with the job, that had nothing to do with the kid, that had nothing to do with the wife. They were from some deep dark place in their past that and he used dream work to get to the core of that. And so uh, that is not exactly my work, uh, but it's still an amazingly rich area to explore, and it may be a good path for someone is to work with in that in that path,
Yeah.
right? And dream work can be a pretty rich study in its own. So um, yeah, being honest with ourselves about the life energy that bubbles inside of us, and being aware of the fact that the more you suppress, the more violently these things are going to kind of pop
Yeah.
back up on you.
Yeah. That resonates with me too. Like there has been times in my life where the direction was clear, but I would ignore it. And eventually, it seems like eventually the universe kind of gives you the message a little stronger next time.
Yes, yes,
You've
and
experienced that as well, I see.
yeah, uh, and another effing learning opportunity, right?
That's right.
Thank you, universe. I think that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, uh, there's a the universe is a trickster.
Hmm. Yeah.
and it speaks in symbolic ways. There are very few direct lines in the way the universe works. It works around corners. It works in
Hmm.
in in odd and beautiful ways. And that's I often talk about embracing the full catastrophe
Yeah.
of life,
Hmm.
which is incidentally an it's very interesting book. The author's name escapes me at the moment, but it's a good read, and it just talks about kind of approaching life like, oh well, there we go,
Yeah.
you know, uh, and 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 also humbling us to the point that we still appreciating our divinity, right? I mean, we're important, right? We're here for a reason, and also at the same time realizing, well, we're all stardust. Eventually, the sun's going to supernova or whatever, and we're going to go back to floating around in the universe as little particles of something.
Hmm.
And we have no control over that. Or just the things we do control are right now, right here. I control this very moment right now. That's all I can do. And my past is in the past. That's gone. It informs me. It educates me. It instructs me, but I have no more control of it. So, and that's why I like the coaching model, because it is okay. The past is past. You can do nothing about it. Let's look ahead. Let's look at this moment. What can I do now that's going to influence a better future? That I have a better uh, buffet of
Hmm.
choices ahead of me in the years to come, in the days to come. And I think I feel that's a very optimistic approach to life.
Yeah.
And when I'm able to really sit into that understanding, I find wonderful things happen. Wonderful things just kind of flow my way. And I know you've had previous guests on this that have gone into that more deeply than I am here. Yet I listened with great interest because it's real. It's
Yeah.
it's really great stuff, and it we don't have to live in despair. We can we can we can see our choices as being uh, uh, as being precursors to the way our future unfolds, with the understanding that trickster universe is always out there,
Yes.
ready to throw water balloons in, and at the weirdest times, and it helps to be ready for it because it's going to happen, and it's going to remind you whether you're on the right path or not.
Yeah. I,
So
I,
yeah,
I think that's an excellent frame. Strider, how can people learn more about you if they're curious?
striderjohnpeterson.com. I also am on Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn. We'll put those links in there. And I
Hmm.
also offer a series of free classes that
Hmm.
I've listed on, they're on Meetup. My Meetup group is called Men Who Love Women. Pretty
Oh,
simple, right?
yeah.
Because it's true. And so, uh, and just off the top of my head, I do the 7 archetypes class as a series. The
Hmm.
seven those archetypes that I talked about earlier in the interview, and there's one on erotic authenticity. I teach a class on masculine containment. It
Hmm.
talks about how yang energy, male energy, can create safe spaces so that yin energy can thrive.
Hmm.
It's a wonderful topic. And I also, because I worked in healthcare for so long, I also am running a class on helping healthcare professionals uh, conquer burnout.
Hmm.
And I think that's a very, very rich area. And the last one, oh yes, this is very important. I also am starting a class for new and expecting fathers. as a support group for them. All these things that I wish I had had when I was a new dad. Community, guidance, mentorship, that's the goal. So so a lot of opportunities to stay in touch.
I will make sure to put links to those different locations in the show notes as well.
Wonderful.
What's the one thing that you want these listeners to leave with today?
So this is a quote from Morihei Ueshiba, who is the founder of Aikido, who is a very fascinating man. Passed away in 1969, but left us with a legacy of this incredible art of peace. And his words were often kind of opaque, but this is about as clear as he ever got, which is to always practice in the spirit of joy. No matter what you're doing, bring joy to it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time today, Strider John.
It's been great, Joshua.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please go ahead and leave me a 5-star review on this podcast. That's really the best way to expand this message, and it would mean a lot to me. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on YouTube so you can stay up to date with Super States. Also, let me know what kind of topics or guests you'd like me to cover in future episodes. You can just respond in the comments below. You can also find me on nearly all the social media sites out there at Joshua Ray Peters. That's REY. I promise I'll answer your comments. I'll see you all next week. Remember now, you carry the seeds of change inside. So stay curious, keep growing, and embrace your transformation.